I still remember the exact moment my mom said the number out loud. $500,000. Not whispered. Not hesitated. Said like it was nothing. Like she was talking about groceries, not their entire retirement. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the floor disappeared under me. I looked at my dad, waiting for him to laugh it off, to say it was a joke. He didn't. He just stared at the kitchen table like it was judging him. That's when I knew this was real. And this was about to wreck everything. My parents had spent 35 years grinding. No fancy vacations. No new cars. Dad worked double shifts at the plant, came home smelling like oil and metal. Mom clipped coupons like it was a competitive sport. Every penny went into that retirement fund. That money was supposed to mean peace, safety, a quiet life after decades of busting their backs. Instead, they handed it all to my sister. Let me be clear, I'm not talking about some cute Etsy shop or side hustle. My sister, Alyssa, had what she called a disruptive tech startup. She said it with buzzwords, flashy slides, and that confidence that makes investors nod without understanding a thing. She promised fast growth, big returns, and early retirement for our parents. Dad didn't trust it. I could tell. He asked questions, real ones. Revenue models, burn rate, legal structure. Stuff that actually matters. Alyssa rolled her eyes like he was some dinosaur who didn't get the future. Mom stepped in. She's our daughter, she said. If we don't believe in her, who will? That line hit Dad like a punch to the chest. Against his gut. Against my warnings. Against every red flag waving in his face. He signed the papers. $500,000 transferred in one click. Gone from their account. Straight into Alyssa's startup. At first, everything looked shiny. Instagram posts about late nights building the dream. Fancy co-working spaces. New laptops. Conference selfies with captions like, big things coming. But behind the scenes, the cracks were already forming. Payments stopped adding up. Investors went quiet. Employees started quitting. And every time Dad asked where the money was going, Alyssa snapped back. You're stressing me out. You're sabotaging my focus. You never believed in me anyway. That's when the blame started shifting. Not toward the business. Not toward her decisions. Toward my father. And I swear on everything, when Alyssa finally said, if this fails, it's because Dad jinxed it. I knew this wasn't just a bad investment anymore. This was about to turn into a nightmare none of us saw coming, and trust me, we hadn't even reached the part where the FBI shows up yet. Here's the thing nobody tells you about family money disasters, they don't explode all at once. They rot slowly. Quietly. Right under your nose. 3 months after the investment, Dad noticed the first red flag. The retirement account confirmation letters stopped coming. Not because the money was gone. We already knew that. But because Alyssa had promised monthly updates. Progress reports, something, anything. Instead, silence. Dad tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Texts left on read. When he finally cornered her at Sunday dinner, she smiled like nothing was wrong, scooped mashed potatoes onto her plate, and said, relax, Dad, that's how startups work. But his hands were shaking. I started digging on my own. Public filings, business registrations, LinkedIn updates. What I found made my chest tighten. The company address had changed twice. The CFO she bragged about never existed. The strategic partnership she hyped online was just a repost of someone else's announcement. And then came the credit card charges. My mom accidentally opened one of the shared financial alerts on Dad's phone. Thousands spent on luxury hotels, first-class flights, high-end restaurants, not client meetings, vacations. When Mom asked about it, Alyssa snapped. That's business development, she said. You wouldn't understand. Dad tried to stay calm. He always did. But I saw it in his eyes. That sinking realization that their future was bleeding out, dollar by dollar. That's when the gaslighting kicked into overdrive. Every concern Dad raised became an attack on Alyssa's mental health. Every question turned into proof he was negative. Every warning was labeled toxic energy. And somehow, someway, Dad became the villain. Alyssa told relatives he was controlling. Told friends he was sabotaging her. She even told Mom, her own mother, that Dad was stressing her so much it was affecting investor confidence. Mom started choosing sides. Just give her space, she said. Stop interrogating her, she said. She's under pressure, she said. Meanwhile, Dad started losing sleep. He woke up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, whispering numbers under his breath like prayers. I caught him one night at the kitchen table with a legal pad, trying to calculate how long they could survive if the money never came back. That's when I heard him say something I'll never forget. I think it's gone. Not might be. Not we'll see. Gone. And the worst part, Alyssa wasn't acting scared. She wasn't scrambling. She wasn't even apologetic. She was defensive. Angry. Almost prepared. Like she knew exactly how this story was going to end, and she'd already decided who to blame. And believe me, she was setting my father up for the fall. You want to know how fast money can flip love into suspicion? Try watching your own sister rewrite reality in real time. It started subtle. Alyssa didn't accuse Dad outright at first. Nah, she planted seeds. Little comments at family gatherings. Side remarks on group calls. Stuff that sounded harmless unless you were paying close attention. Dad just doesn't understand how modern finance works. He's been really emotional lately. I think his stress is rubbing off on investors. Each sentence landed like a paper cut. Small, but relentless. Before long, relatives started calling me, not Dad. Asking if he was okay. Asking if he'd been acting strange. One aunt even whispered that maybe he'd made unauthorized withdrawals before the investment. That's when I realized Alyssa wasn't just defending herself. She was building a narrative. And Dad, he was too decent to fight back. He kept thinking the truth would speak for itself. That Alyssa would come clean. That Mom would notice the inconsistencies. Instead, the story kept spreading. Dad was controlling, paranoid, maybe even slipping mentally. Mom started hiding bank mail from him. So you don't stress, she said. She took over finances, temporarily. Dad let it happen because he trusted her, because he trusted family. That trust nearly destroyed him. One night, I walked in on Dad sitting in the garage, lights off, just staring at the wall. No phone, no TV. Just silence. He looked smaller somehow. Like the weight of the lies was pressing him into the concrete. She told your mother I moved money without telling her, he said quietly. That's insane, I snapped. I know, he said, but she believes it. That hit harder than any accusation. Meanwhile, Alyssa's lifestyle didn't slow down. New car. Designer bags. Social posts about entrepreneur life. Comments turned off. DMs closed. She was insulating herself while the house burned down around us. Dad finally snapped when a letter arrived from a private lender. Addressed to him. Alyssa had taken loans in the company's name and listed Dad as a guarantor. Without his consent. Without his signature. Without his knowledge. When he confronted her, she didn't deny it. She smirked. You said you'd support me, she said. This is what that looks like. That was the moment Dad stopped trying to fix things quietly. He called a lawyer, and that's when Alyssa's tone changed, from confident to hostile. She accused Dad of trying to destroy her business, told Mom he was threatening legal action to control her. She even hinted, out loud, that maybe Dad was the one mismanaging money and projecting guilt onto her. That's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid of getting caught. She was planning to burn him to save herself, and what none of us knew yet. What Alyssa didn't realize either was that someone else had already started watching. Someone who doesn't care about family drama. Someone who doesn't care about excuses. Someone with a badge. The letter didn't come from a bank. It didn't come from a lawyer. It came in a plain white envelope with a return address that made my heart stop for a second too long. The IRS. Dad opened it slowly, like the paper might bite him. His hands shook so bad I thought he'd drop it. The letter said his name had been flagged in connection with irregular business filings tied to Alyssa's startup. Not accused. Flagged. But anyone who knows anything knows. That's how nightmares begin. Alyssa lost it when Dad told her, "You called the government on me." She screamed over the phone. "I didn't call anyone," Dad said, voice cracked. "They contacted me." That's when her story changed again. She claimed Dad insisted on handling paperwork early on. Said he volunteered to help, with finances, said any discrepancies must have come from his involvement. It was a lie. A bold one. And worse, it was documented. Emails had been altered, PDFs edited. His name added to filings he'd never seen. Someone had been busy rewriting history. And they weren't being subtle about it. Dad's lawyer requested a formal audit to clear his name. That move alone cost thousands. Money my parents didn't have anymore. Mom cried when she found out. Not because she doubted Dad, but because she realized how deep the hole was. The audit opened doors nobody could close. Transactions led nowhere. Payments routed through shell accounts. Vendor names that didn't exist. One marketing agency turned out to be an LLC registered to Alyssa's college roommate, with the same home address as Alyssa. When confronted, Alyssa played the victim. They're overreacting. This is sexism in tech. My own family is sabotaging me. But facts don't care about tantrums. The auditor asked one question that flipped the room cold. Can you explain where the remaining $312,000 went? Alyssa couldn't. She blamed Dad. Again, she said he pressured her into risky decisions. That he approved spending. That he handled transfers. The room went silent. Even Mom finally looked unsure. Then the auditor slid a document across the table. Time-stamped, logged, verified. Every transfer came from Alyssa's personal login. Two-factor authentication. IP addresses. Locations. Dates. Dad hadn't touched a dime. That should have been the end of it. But instead of backing down, Alyssa doubled down, accusing Dad of coercion, manipulation, emotional abuse. She filed a complaint claiming he forced her to mismanage funds. That's when the auditor stood up. This matter is no longer administrative, he said. It's criminal. And with that single word, everything changed. Because once it's criminal, it's no longer family business. It's federal. And the next knock on our door wouldn't be from an auditor. It would be from someone who doesn't ask nicely. It was a Tuesday morning. Quiet. Ordinary. The kind of day where nothing bad is supposed to happen. Dad was in the backyard fixing a loose fence post. Mom was inside folding laundry like she'd done 1,000 times before. I was halfway through a cup of burnt coffee when 3 black SUVs rolled up and parked in front of the house. No sirens. No drama. Just finality. 2 men and a woman stepped out, dark suits, calm faces. Badges clipped at the waist. FBI. Mom's knees buckled. Dad wiped his hands on his jeans, took a breath, and walked to the door like a man who'd already accepted whatever was coming. That's the part that still messes me up. He wasn't scared. He was tired. The lead agent asked for Alyssa first. She doesn't live here, Dad said. They nodded. Like they already knew. Then they asked to come inside. They explained everything in that cool, professional tone that makes it 10 times worse. Wire fraud, bank fraud, identity misuse, false filings, misappropriation of investor funds, multiple accounts, cross-state transactions, and Dad's name? Used, forged, abused. The agent looked him straight in the eye and said, "You're considered a victim in this case." Mom broke down sobbing. Years of doubt collapsed in one sentence. The FBI had been tracking Alyssa for months. Long before the audit. Complaints from other investors. Patterns too clean to be accidents. Her startup, it wasn't failing, it was bleeding money by design. She'd moved funds into personal accounts, shell companies, crypto wallets. Used the business as a cover while blaming Dad as a convenient fall guy. The old, school parent. Who didn't understand tech. Classic misdirection. The agents asked for documents. Phones. Laptops. Dad handed everything over without hesitation. He wanted the truth out, no matter how ugly it got. Then came the question none of us were ready for. Do you know where Alyssa is right now? We didn't. Turns out, Alyssa had booked a one-way flight the night before. No return ticket. No explanation. Just vanished. But the FBI wasn't surprised. She knows we're coming, the agent said. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a family meltdown anymore. This was a full-blown federal case, and my sister was officially on the run. Mom kept repeating. I raised her better than this. Like a broken record. Dad sat silently, staring at the wall, absorbing the fact that his own daughter tried to ruin him to save herself. Before leaving, the agent turned to Dad and said something I'll never forget. You did the right thing by asking questions. That probably saved you. The SUVs pulled away. The house felt emptier than it ever had. And somewhere out there, Alyssa was realizing that blame only works until the law shows up. You think once the FBI leaves, the chaos stops. It doesn't. That's when the silence gets loud. The house felt haunted after those black SUVs disappeared down the street. No TV, no music. Just the hum of the refrigerator and my mom's quiet crying from the bedroom. Dad sat at the kitchen table for hours, hands folded, staring at a coffee cup he never touched. The man who carried our family for decades looked empty. Mom didn't speak to him at first. Not because she blamed him, but because guilt is a cruel thing. She'd defended Alyssa, chosen her side, questioned Dad's sanity, and now every memory came back sharp and unforgiving. I should have listened to you, she whispered later that night. Dad didn't say, "I told you so." He just nodded. The FBI called the next day. They'd frozen several accounts, recovered a portion of the money, not all, but enough to confirm one thing: Alyssa never intended to build a real company. She intended to cash out. More details spilled in. Fake invoices, inflated contracts, transfers timed to the minute after deposits cleared. She'd studied how to avoid detection, just not well enough. The hardest part, she didn't just steal money. She stole trust. Relatives who once questioned Dad suddenly went quiet. Apologies came in awkward waves, texts that said, "Sorry if we misunderstood," like misunderstanding was the problem. Dad didn't respond to most of them. Meanwhile, Mom kept replaying moments. Alyssa asking for more money, Dad hesitating, her stepping in to reassure him. That realization broke her more than the FBI visit ever could. "She used me," Mom said one night. "She used my love." Dad reached for her hand. "She used all of us." And yet, even after everything, Mom still worried about Alyssa. Is she safe? What if she's scared? What if she needs help? That's the sickness of family loyalty. It doesn't shut off just because the truth shows up with badges. Then came the call. Alyssa had been located. Not arrested. Located. She'd been staying with a friend 2 states away, pretending to clear her head. When agents approached her, she didn't deny anything. She blamed Dad again, said he pressured her, said he scared her into bad decisions, said she felt cornered. The agents noted it all, and then showed her the evidence. That's when she stopped talking. Lawyers got involved, charges were drafted. And suddenly, my sister, the golden child, the visionary, the future CEO, was facing consequences she couldn't spin away. Dad was offered victim restitution, a chance to recover more money eventually. But money wasn't what he wanted. He wanted his family back. And that might be the one thing he never fully gets. The meeting wasn't dramatic like in the movies. No shouting, no slammed doors. Just a cold conference room and years of betrayal sitting between 2 people who shared the same blood. Alyssa requested to see Dad before everything went public. Her lawyer called it closure. Dad almost said no. I could see it in his eyes. He was done giving pieces of himself away. But then he sighed and said, "I need to hear her say it." So we went. Alyssa walked in thinner, tired. The confidence she wore like armor was gone. No designer clothes, no startup buzzwords. Just a woman cornered by reality. She didn't apologize. Not at first. She talked about pressure, expectations, living in Dad's shadow, wanting to prove she was more than the smart daughter with potential. She said the money felt like her last shot. And once it started slipping, panic took over. "I thought I could fix it," she said. "I thought if I bought time, it would all work out." Dad listened. Silent. Still. Then he asked one question. "Why did you blame me?" She swallowed hard. "Because I knew you'd survive it," she said. "I didn't think I would." That sentence landed like a bullet. She admitted she forged documents. That she used his name because it gave her credibility. That she thought if things went south, everyone would believe he messed up before they believed she stole. She looked at him and said, "You were always the strong one." Dad leaned back in his chair, glassy. "I was strong because I had to be," he said. "You made me weak on purpose." That's when Alyssa broke. Not sobbing, cracking. She whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad." It was the first real apology she'd offered anyone. But apologies don't rewind time. They don't unspend money. They don't erase sleepless nights or public suspicion or a marriage strained to its limit. Dad stood up. I forgive you, he said, but forgiveness doesn't mean trust. And it doesn't mean escape. Alyssa nodded. She knew. As we left, she asked one last thing. Will Mom talk to me? Dad paused. I don't know, he said. That's something you broke, not me. Outside, the air felt heavier. Like closure came with gravity. Dad didn't smile. He didn't cry. But for the first time in months, his shoulders weren't hunched. The truth had finally landed where it belonged. And what came next wasn't revenge. It was consequences. People think the worst part of betrayal is the moment you find out. It's not. The worst part is after, when life keeps moving but nothing feels the same. The legal process dragged on for months. Court dates, depositions, paperwork stacked higher than the kitchen counter. Dad had to repeat the story again and again. To lawyers, agents, financial analysts. Each time reopening wounds he was just learning to close. Some money came back. Not all. Enough to help my parents breathe again, but not enough to erase the damage. Their retirement plans shrank. The quiet future they imagined turned into a careful, budgeted one. And Alyssa. She took a plea deal, federal charges, probation, restitution, a permanent record that follows her everywhere she goes. No more startup dreams. No more investors nodding along to buzzwords. Just reality. Mom visited her once, came home silent, went straight to bed. She didn't say a word about it for days. When she finally did, all she said was, "She looks like a stranger." Dad stopped talking about Alyssa completely. Not out of anger, but survival. Trust became a fragile thing in our family. Conversations tiptoed around money. Holidays felt smaller. Lauder came back slowly, cautiously, like nobody wanted to jinx it. And yet, something unexpected happened. Dad started sleeping again. He took morning walks. Fixed things around the house. Even laughed at dumb TV commercials. The weight that crushed him after the blame was gone. Being cleared didn't fix everything. But it gave him his dignity back. One night, he said something that stuck with me. Losing money hurts, he said. But losing your name, that almost killed me. That's the part nobody warns you about. Financial betrayal doesn't just empty accounts, it rewrites how people see you. Mom and Dad learned to rebuild trust with each other. Slowly. Honestly. No more blind faith. No more emotional investing, just clarity. As for me, I learned that blood doesn't make someone safe. Accountability does. Alyssa sends letters sometimes. Apologies written in careful handwriting. Dad doesn't open them yet. Maybe one day. Maybe not. Healing isn't a deadline, it's a process. And some scars don't fade, they just stop hurting as much. But one thing is certain: blame works until evidence speaks. Lies work until systems notice. Family loyalty works until it's weaponized. If you'd asked me a year ago what would destroy a family, I would have said something loud. Addiction. Violence. A massive public scandal. I wouldn't have said belief. Because that's what really did it. Believing without verifying. Loving without boundaries. Assuming blood means honesty. My parents learned that retirement accounts don't just need growth, they need protection. Contracts matter. Paper trails matter. And no dream is so important that it deserves blind trust. Dad learned something even deeper. That being quiet to keep the peace can invite chaos. He told me once. I thought staying calm would keep us together. Instead, it gave Alyssa space to lie. Mom learned that support doesn't mean surrender. That loving your child doesn't mean shielding them from consequences. That choosing one kid over the truth nearly cost her a marriage. And me, I learned that warning signs don't scream, they whisper. They show up as delayed answers, missing details, defensive reactions to simple questions. Alyssa didn't wake up one day and decide to become a criminal. She crossed small lines first, justified them, got comfortable. And when the walls started closing in, she didn't take responsibility. She reached for the nearest shield. My father, the strongest person in her life, became the easiest target. That's the cold truth about betrayal. It uses your best qualities against you. But here's the part that matters most. The system worked. Not perfectly. Not painlessly, but it worked. Evidence beat emotion. Facts beat stories. And accountability beat manipulation. Dad's name was cleared. His reputation restored. His peace slowly reclaimed. Alyssa didn't win by escaping. She lost by being exposed. And if this story does anything, I hope it reminds people of this. Ask questions, even when it's uncomfortable. Protect yourself, even from family. And never confuse confidence with competence. Because when money meets ego and accountability disappears, the fallout doesn't care who you love. It will take everything it can. People always ask one question when they hear this story. Would your parents do it again? The answer comes without hesitation. No, not because they stopped loving their daughter, but because love without limits isn't love. It's permission. On a quiet Sunday evening, months after the court case wrapped up, we sat around the same kitchen table where the 500,000 decision was first spoken out loud. Same chairs, same room, different people. Dad cleared his throat and said something that felt like the real ending. I thought giving her that money would secure our future, he said. Turns out, setting boundaries is what saved it. Mom nodded. She looked older, but stronger. Wiser in a way only pain can teach. She finally admitted she confused encouragement with endorsement. That she ignored her instincts because believing her daughter felt easier than doubting her. That night, Dad locked away the last remaining documents from the case. Not to hide them, but to stop living inside them. Some chapters don't need rereading. Alyssa is still paying restitution, still rebuilding her life from the ground up. No shortcuts, no safety nets, just consequences. She's learning something she never did when the money was flowing: how to stand without leaning on lies. Do my parents talk to her? Sometimes. Carefully. With boundaries so clear they don't need explaining. And maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Family doesn't mean unlimited access, support doesn't mean silence, and trust, once broken, has to be rebuilt brick by brick, not demanded. Dad volunteers now, helps people with financial literacy at a local center. He tells them one thing every time: if someone gets mad when you ask questions, walk away. Because that anger, that defensiveness, it's never about respect. It's about fear of being exposed. If you're watching this and something feels off in your own life, listen to that feeling. Don't wait for audits. Don't wait for investigators. Don't wait for the FBI to knock. Protect your name. Protect your future. Protect your peace, because money can be earned again. But trust. That's the most expensive thing you'll ever lose.